I think the unsung hero in all of this is Stephen Miller.
Stephen Miller, thank you for your support, your leadership, your clarity.
Most high schoolers are worried about prom, acne, passing algebra. This guy, he said, what if I wrote something so wild it would age terribly for the rest of my life, like a racist manifesto? So by 16, Stephen Little Bitch Miller had a fully formed white nationalist worldview. He wasn't trying to be an edgy counterculture teenager. This man was making absolutely sure that everyone around him knew it, that he was a dick. His classmates didn't find him annoying. They were like, this man has something terrifyingly evil and off about him. And reading that from this perspective, people were saying it that far back, and they were saying it with such concern that eventually one of them wrote it down as this ominous warning, which in hindsight should have been spread way more widely. We're going to get into it because Stephen Miller's history really explains so much of the policy and terror we're experiencing now. And this man should have been institutionalized.
Well, first and most importantly, thank you to President Trump, because President Trump believes in merit, in competence, in people who get things done. So you look around the table of who President Trump chose for these jobs.
Real quick, I'm Lauren Paritra. If you're new here, please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed. We currently have a lead, me and Willa, my four-legged co-host and boss, have a lead on Katie Miller, who is the wife of Stephen Little Bitch Miller, who we're covering in a deep dive today. Make sure you sub, hype, comment, 6 words or more, follow across social platforms. Every action, consider that an FU to Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller. We got to maintain our lead out of pure principle. So we covered earlier Stephen Miller villain lore in the last couple episodes. He ended a friendship in a very disturbing way. There was the whole pizza drunk on power thing, all of it. And if you haven't heard that one, go back because it sets the tone for everything that comes next. The short version is by the time this kid got to high school, the patterns were already there, calcified. Stephen Miller knew he was an evil villain. We knew it right away. And before we get into all that, there's this detail from middle school that keeps coming back. So his friend Jason remembered that Miller was completely fixated on this macho alpha male thing, like Captain Kirk, Las Vegas mob bosses, Bugsy Siegel types. There's an actual yearbook photo of Stephen Miller dressed as a gangster holding a wad of cash. This wasn't cosplay. The man was 13. Most 13-year-olds are into whatever is on Disney Channel or sports or something. Kid was cosplaying as a 1940s crime boss. Anyway, so high school, Miller writes an op-ed in a local newspaper. And look at the topic he picks. Latino students being underrepresented in honors classes is actually a real issue that people care about for real reasons. A normal person reads that and thinks, what's driving that? What can we do to help have a little bit more representation? Miller reads that and thinks, column. He uses it to attack the school for making announcements in both English and Spanish. He goes after the gay student club. He complains about the school providing condoms. He expresses contempt for any acknowledgement of historical violence against Native Americans while very much being on indigenous ground. Tongan land, to be exact. And all of this in one op-ed when he was 16. He wasn't just conservative. This man had a checklist of white nationalist talking points, a very sweaty, awkward checklist. The trash speech that also happened.
I'm the only one who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash. And we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it for us.
He's just joking. It's a joke.
He stands up in front of his classmates and tells them that they shouldn't have to pick up their own trash. And I want you to really hear this, because janitors are paid to do it. The room booed him. Like remember back in middle school and high school, I went to public school. We loved our janitors. They were the best and we respected them and vice versa. So imagine trying to rizz up the student body to be mean to the people who are working day labor in our school campus. No. So rightfully so, he was collectively booed. His friend Christopher tried to do some cleanup afterwards, no pun intended. He told people Miller was just joking and that everyone was too uptight. But then people in that room do not remember it as a joke. And honestly, given everything else we know about this man, the idea that he was being kind of satirical feels like a real stretch. I think he said what he said. And then he thought, I'm surprised to learn that other human beings exist and have feelings about things. And then after 9/11, it gets worse. He writes a column attacking anyone who questioned American foreign policy, which fine, a lot of people were doing weird things in 2001. But then he also separately claims that a teacher dragged an American flag across the floor while students were heading off to war. And here's the thing. Nobody else at that school remembers that happening. Not the co-principal or any of Stephen Littlebitch Miller's classmates. Not anyone who is interviewed about it. The incident appears to only exist in Stephen Littlebitch Miller's little tiny brain. He has never corrected that record, which is a pattern that would go on to serve him very well in his later career. His proudest high school achievement, by the way, and multiple people confirm this is how he talked about it, was getting the school to comply with a California law requiring a daily patriotic exercise. He reported the violation to the co-principal. Of course, he was the guy that was just hanging out, telling on people, being a rat to the principal. And then he wrote a letter to the conservative radio host, Larry Elder. You guys know Larry Elder? Elder put him on the show, and then Miller went on that show. Are you ready for this? More than 70 times. 70.
Elder was a mentor to Stephen Miller, the xenophobic, anti-immigrant former Trump advisor.
And he kept count. He tracked every single appearance. He was drunk off the thrill of hanging out with Larry Elder. He was a teenager with a running tally of his right-wing radio appearances. Most teenagers are keeping score of how many times they've texted their crush back and how many people they've dated. Stephen Miller was logging his media appearances in what I can only assume was a very organized spreadsheet in his parents' basement. His yearbook quote was Teddy Roosevelt, specifically the line about there being room in America for only 100% Americanism and nothing else. I had a Red Hot Chili Pepper song lyric. Most people had movie quotes. Not a white nationalist loyalty oath. I think about the graphic design of that yearbook page sometimes. The layout alone. I hope whoever did that is in therapy and counseling now. So then it gets worse somehow. We get to Boys State. Boys State is a week-long civics program in Sacramento where high school students basically build a mock government from scratch. Bill Clinton went to this, Neil Armstrong, Michael Jordan. It's supposed to be this like leadership experience. For Miller, a conservative-leaning environment full of competitive teenage boys looking for something to rally around, this should have been his moment. This was the room built for him and his passions of weirdness. And even here, somehow he managed to make everyone deeply uncomfortable. He runs for a seat on the mock board of supervisors where everyone else gives these bland, forgettable speeches about teamwork and stuff. Miller gets up there and starts shouting. Like, say he was pacing around, roaring, the full thing, like hissing at the sun. He calls for a black ops operation to spy on and sabotage other countries. Stephen Miller, you are a 16 or 17-year-old from Santa Monica. What do you mean sabotage other countries? He doesn't treat the other kids like fellow participants in a civics exercise. He treats them like enemies. And the crowd, full of teenage boys who wanted something to be riled up around, completely ate it up. A journalist who was there and who later covered the Trump White House said he cheered too, which tells you something about both Miller and the general decision-making of teenage boys. He wins by a lot. And then he does this catchphrase, it's Miller time, which is a beer reference. It almost makes him likable until you remember he's Stephen Littlebitch Miller. And he's doing it to a bunch of 16-year-olds. Okay, clever. The self-awareness, non-existent, classic Miller. But then this is the part that he loses a separate vote, a mock city council seat, and something in him just snaps, screams, you can't do this to me. His classmate, Nick Silverman, who traveled there with him from the same school and watched the whole thing unfold, said it was the only time he ever saw Miller genuinely snap. This man thinks he's winning. He's like, oh, I'm so dominating whatever room I'm in. And it didn't happen when the system crashed and kids around him were like, you lost a fake election at summer camp, Stephen Littlebitch Miller, go get hot dog dinner and chill. Miller flipped furniture and screamed at everyone at this civics program in front of everyone over a mock city council seat. The word mock doing a lot of heavy lifting here. And here's the kicker. Even in a room full of conservative teenagers who should have been his people, he was ostracized. He couldn't even win the room. He has not a drop of any sort of charisma in his pale body. Silverman wrote about it later. He put it all on the record. He said Miller believed multiculturalism was a weakness and that celebrating other cultures was an attack on American identity. He didn't want anyone bringing food from their home country or celebrating where their family came from. One culture, one country, one skin tone, end of discussion. That was Stephen Miller back when he was 16. Miller would make up statistics, according to his friends, make up statistics about immigration numbers that nobody could fact check. And funny how that strategy has carried him all the way to the White House.
But what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia.
Do not take these stories lightly. They sound like exaggerations. They are not. He is an extremist, and he has always been. The mob boss yearbook photo, the trash speech, the flag story nobody else remembers, the 70 conservative radio appearance spots that he kept count of. This is not a phase, Mom. This is the kind of thing that a kid finds himself doing when they're unwell and full of hate. And the rest of us are still dealing with his little salty bitch consequences. That's who he was. He just kept finding bigger rooms. And if this video has expanded your perspective, or you want to continue diving deeper into the dark, cold, pasty waters of Stephen Little Bitch Miller and how he got here, I'm not stopping. There's a lot more where this came from. Wait till you get into the next part. Make sure you're hit subscribed. Again, a lot of this informed by the work of journalists who walked before me. I will link some of their work, pieces of work, in description. Let us know in the comments what you want to see more of next. I am Lauren P. All social channels. Find me elsewhere so we can stay in touch. And bye.